In the 5th century AD, the declining Roman Empire is withdrawing from Britannia, where the native Woads, led by Merlin, stage an insurgency. A group of Sarmatian knights and their half-British Roman commander Artorius Castus, known as Arthur, have fulfilled their duties to Rome and are preparing to return home. King Arthur and the remnants of his knights ride out to meet Bishop Germanius and his Roman escort, who is coming to present their freedom papers for travel throughout the Roman Empire. From nearby, Woads, a group of native Britons who are rebels against Roman rule, led by the mysterious Merlin, are preparing for an ambush. They waited for the right time to launch the attack on the bishop's escorts. Seeing this, the knights rush to the scene to protect the convoy. The knights arrive in time to turn the tables on the attackers, taking them one at a time. Arthur surprisingly spares the life of a Woad, while being watched from the trees by Merlin. Arthur offers Germanius his quarters to refresh himself. While there, Germanius notices a disc of Arthur's depicting Pelagius and contemptuously tosses it onto the floor, breaking it. He is further horrified when he comes to the meal to find a round table where he could not assume a position of head of the table. Arthur, who wanted to follow Pelagius' teaching that for all to have equal placements at the table. Bishop Germanius firstly dismays the knights by reporting that the Romans would now be pulling out of Britain and that a large Saxon army had landed and would probably take over the country. He then dismisses the others, in order to explain to Arthur alone the double-edged reason for his visit. Bishop Germanius orders them to complete one final mission: evacuate an important Roman family from north of Hadrian's wall, saving them from an advancing army of invading Saxons led by the ruthless Cherdich and his son, Cynric. Alecto, the son of the family patriarch, is a viable candidate to be a future pope. Arthur explains their mission to the others. Dagonet implicitly trusts Arthur and prepares for the mission. The others is in varying degrees of reluctance and anger, but accepted their last mission. The next day they set off through Hadrian's wall. Meanwhile, Cherdich Saxons have landed. They burn every building and kill everyone they come across. They are joined by a Woad spy who tells them of the important Roman family. Cherdich sends his son Cynric with his men to capture the family and then rejoin his father at Hadrian's wall. Arthur's men go deep into Woad territory to reach the Roman family and are soon ambushed by the Woad. As they move in for the kill, Merlin gets word of the Saxon invasion, and to their disgust, he pulls the Woads back from the ambush. Arthur and his men are bemused to find they are free to continue their journey. They reach the family, and the father Marius at first refuses to go, but Arthur forces them for the sake of his men's freedom. He then learns of Marius' harsh dealings of the peasants, which cuts across his Pelagian ideals. He sets their local leader free and orders them to prepare for the march south. They are about to depart, hearing the Saxons' drums, when Arthur becomes suspicious of a bricked-up building. There he finds Woads with all but two starved and tortured to death. He rescues the two survivors, Guinevere and a young boy, and takes them on their escape route from the Saxons. Marius is furious, but Arthur fells him and they all leave, with Marius threatening reprisals when they get back to Hadrian's wall. Arthur knows they must rest and they spend the night in a forest. He follows Guinevere, who brings him to Merlin. He accuses Guinevere of leading him into a trap, but she says Merlin is not there to kill him. Merlin explains that his men see Arthur more Briton than Roman and as their only leader against the Saxon invasion. Merlin reminds Arthur of his connection to the island of Britain through his Celtic mother. As day breaks, Marius grabs the Woad boy and threatens to kill him. Guinevere calmly shoots Marius with her bow and arrow, and his men are given the choice of surrendering or dying. They choose the former. Tristan arrives and says the Saxons are much closer and they must leave. As they journey, Arthur seeks Alecto's forgiveness for his father's death. However, Alecto calmly says not only had his father lost his way, but stuns Arthur by saying he fights for a Rome that doesn't exist and that Pelagius had been excommunicated and killed under Germanius' orders for heresy the previous year. They reach a glacier and the Saxons are right on their tail. They dismount from their wagons and Arthur leads them all carefully over the cracking ice. He then sends the rest on while the 7 knights and Guinevere take up a position at the end of the glacier with bows and arrows to await the Saxons. As the Saxons approach, the knights starting killing those on the flanks, forcing the advancing Saxons to bunch. But still the ice doesn't break up. Arthur realizes the ice is not going to break and gives the order to draw swords. Dagonet rushes forward with his axe and starts hacking away at the ice. The archers try to protect him, but eventually Saxon arrows get through and he dies just as his last blow breaks up the ice. Many Saxons drown and the rest cannot follow them as a sad Arthur and his men retrieve Dagonet's body, catch up with the column and lead them to safety. Cynric and his survivors return to his father, who strips him of his leadership and humiliates him. A very belligerent band of knights snatches their freedom papers from Germanius and then buries Dagonet. After the funeral, Guinevere sits with Arthur and presses the point of how his allegiance should really be with this island, especially now that the Romans have tricked him. That night Guinevere comes to his bed and while they are making love, Arthur is summoned to the wall where he witnesses the Saxons' arrival. Arthur is now convinced that he should remain. He releases the knights from their allegiance to him and sends them away with Germanius and the Roman garrison, while he and the villagers prepare their defenses. They are joined by Merlin and the Woad archers led by Guinevere. Cerdic is desperate to meet this Arthur, the name he has continually heard since he landed. Under cover of a truce, he meets him face to face, finally deciding that Arthur is the first man on this island worth killing. As Arthur goes back behind Hadrian's wall, an invigorated Cerdic watches as the gates to the wall mysteriously open. He sends an advance party of Saxons forward to soften up Arthur's men. Meanwhile, as the retreating Romans march away, the remaining knights' horses are unsettled by the sound of the Saxons beating on their war drums. The knights look at each other and know they have to rejoin Arthur, but this time it is of their own volition. The first wave of Saxons is annihilated by a combination of the Woad archers and the knights. All are well coordinated and implemented by the both parties. Cerdic leads his remaining men into the final bloody battle. This time the big siege engines are brought in by Merlin to support Arthur. At the skirmish Lancelot and Cynric kill each other. Cerdic pointedly kills Tristan in the sight of Arthur. Seeing this, Arthur furiously charges Cerdic and they fight to the death. Cerdic's death. The Saxons are annihilated at the place now known as Badon Hill. Arthur is grief-stricken over Lancelot's death and says he has let them all down, but the survivors Gawain, Galahad, and Bors stand by him. In the final scene, Merlin marries Arthur and Guinevere and Arthur is proclaimed king to the joy and support of Woads and knights alike.